What is up, everybody? Welcome to Pub Sports Radio and welcome to the last Stat Diggers of the year. We have UFC Vegas 66 and yeah, kind of bittersweet here. Last episode, always enjoy coming on here on Sunday with Uncle Weezy, but we have this card and then we are off for a month, which is just completely ridiculous, but it is what it is. Weezy, what is up? Are you looking forward to the last episode of the year here?
Yeah, I am, man. You know, as I've been researching through this card for the last couple of days, there's a lot of really intriguing matchups on this one. 14 fights, great way to end off the year here. Nothing like incredibly compelling or high level other than, you know, obviously that Ismagulov versus Tsarukyan fight is very, very compelling. And the main event is going to be a lot of fun too, striker versus striker matchup. But other than that, a lot of really great matchups on this one. Definitely some underdog spots that are already kind of sticking out to me a little bit. So I think I'm going to have some units on this card for sure.
Sounds good. Yeah, I don't have any units yet, but I'm sure there's going to be some spots that stick out after we go through the show. Before we get started here, do you want to do a quick recap of last night? I'll go kind of quick here. I don't really have much to say. It was a good night. I had 11 bets. I hit 9 of them. I had J. Perrin money line and I had a half unit on the Gordon, Jared Gordon decision only at plus 120. Those are my 2 losses, but I hit Chris Curtis plus 145. Hit the Rosenstruck under. I hit the Simon fight doesn't go to decision. I hit the Dolce fight doesn't go to decision. I hit the Till fight doesn't go to decision. I hit 2 parlays. I parlayed the Rosenstruck fight doesn't go with the Simon fight doesn't go. And then I parlayed the Rosenstruck fight doesn't go with the Shabazian fight doesn't go. I hit the under 2.5 rounds for Hernandez Quarantillo at plus 160. And then I hit the fight doesn't go to decision for the Hernandez Quarantillo at plus 104. So up about 5.25 units. Phenomenal night. Couldn't have went any better, really, outside of probably should have hit that Gordon decision only. So it probably should have been up over 6 units on the night, but it is what it is. Pretty good night. Weezy, I know you had a pretty good night yourself, but it could have been even better.
Yeah, it could have been better, man. But I hit some good bets. You know, I had 2.15 units on the under 1.5 rounds for Daukaus Rosenstruck, and that cashed easily. Had a full unit on the under 2.5 for Quarantillo versus Hernandez, which cashed. I had, I lost money on the J. Perrin money line, 1 unit there, and 1/10 of a unit on a 3rd round knockout prop for J. Perrin. But, you know, what really hurt was I had 1 full unit on Jared Gordon to win by decision at plus 500, you know, so that was 1 unit down instead of being 5 units up. So I think I wound the night up over 3 units tracked, but it should have been over 9 units tracked had the Gordon result not been fixed. You know, and that one really hurt. And then the last leg of the greasy 4-legger was Magomed Ankalaev, which wound up becoming a draw. So the greasy 4-legger cashed. I won 1.5 units on Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. You know, that was Chris Curtis, a plus money ass shaving over Joaquin Buckley, and he knocked out Buckley in the 2nd round, had a nice performance there. So it was a really good night, but it got tainted by what happened in the last 2 fights. And I know, Brady, that you're a big fan of what I do on my channel when we have a segment called Story Time with Uncle Weezy. Well, today I wanted to debut a new segment here. It's the last Stat Diggers of the year. It's a special year of 2022. It's been a long year of fights here. But I want to debut a segment here on Pub Sports Radio called Life Lessons with Uncle Weezy, Brady, because we need to talk about corruption. Because I have the unique experience of having been a trader who worked on the floor of the Chicago Stock Exchange. You know, I was trading on the floor of the Chicago Stock Exchange the day the towers fell in 2001. You know, I was head trader for a couple of different investment banking firms in the year 2008 when Lehman Brothers nearly cratered the entire financial system in 2008. I was trading back when, you know, the oil markets went over $100 a barrel, and when the housing market crashed due to a bunch of financial instruments which were, you know, very, very, they had no value and they were being traded as if they had value. And when we have corruption, you know, what it does is it tears away the integrity of whatever the corruption is attached to, whether it's the political system, whether it's a corporation, whether it's how corporations deal with the government in order to get tax breaks that you and we could never get, right? And corruption is something that taints everything in life, and it makes it almost pointless to play by the rules, which, if in life a whole bunch of people are playing by the rules, but some people don't, and they get away with it, it makes everything difficult for everybody who does play by the rules here. And we had a situation last night where we saw corruption just out in wide open from the Nevada State Athletic Commission as they fixed the Paddy Pimblett Jared Gordon fight, giving that fight to Paddy Pimblett, who lost all 3 rounds, giving it to him 29-28 on all 3 judges' scorecards. And then we had basically an impossible result in the very next fight. Ankalaev fights Blachowicz for the championship. Ankalaev gets his first shot at a title shot. This guy only has 1 loss in his entire career, and it came in the last second of a fight with Paul Craig. I mean, the guy is as close to an undefeated athlete as we've ever seen at 205. That fight gets called a draw for no apparent reason at all, other than the UFC decided that they wanted to have Glover Teixeira versus Jamal Hill for the title. And now that's what they have. And it's a problem when you have corruption in mixed martial arts, Brady, because number one, it now makes it so a lot of fighters maybe could make more money fixing fights than they ever could playing by the rules. Number two, you can't have a real fighting organization where people go in there and fight real fights, but then pretend at the end of the day that something else happened in there that didn't happen at all. Are we just supposed to pretend that Paddy Pimblett won that fight now? Are we just supposed to pretend that Magomed Ankalaev isn't the 205-pound champion of the world at this point? Because that's what we would be doing. We'd be pretending. And I don't want to pretend, man. These guys that risk their lives and their health going in there to fight these fights, to go in that cage and make a living, going into a cage and fighting for your life, and not a good living at that. A very dangerous living, a very difficult living, training 2 times a day, paying coaches, going in there and getting injured, cutting massive amounts of weight. That's to the point of it really being risky for your health to do this sport for a living. And then you just take championships away from people because some fucking corporate wankers decided that it would be more profitable if we just pretended that title fight never happened, and now we could make more money with Teixeira versus Hill. Or we could just pretend, because Paddy Pimblett's so popular, we can just pretend that he's a good fighter, which he isn't. He's got a ton of holes in his game. He blocks punches with his face. He's got shit takedown defense. And I mean, he's a complete moment winner with a fucking puncher's chance. And I guess we just have to pretend that he's a good fighter. But I don't want to pretend. These guys who are risking their well-being, they don't want to pretend. And we as fans of this sport, we don't want to fucking pretend that guys are winning fights that they don't win. And we don't want to pretend that we're cashing bets when we're actually having money stolen from us, like I had when I had Gordon by decision. But my plea goes out to Dana White, because Dana White is one of my idols in life. This guy basically was the president of an organization that created another sport that people like us watch that wasn't there 20 years ago. Everybody watches the same shit. Soccer, football, baseball, hockey, basketball, same sports for 50 years. The UFC created something really special by having people go in there and fight and do something incredibly compelling, which is, get into your underwear in the cage and find out, while having the skill sets of all these different martial arts blended together, find out who the best fighters in the world are. And the way that he did it, by building it up from nothing, not really even having a corporate presence, really just saying, we're going to make this happen. They bought it from the Gracies for $1 million, and they created this multi-billion-dollar sport that we all watch today. But now it's been sold off to a corporate entity. There's stock behind it. And you got a bunch of corporate wankers in boardrooms that are making decisions for the rest of us. and they're watering down the sport. They're fucking over the fans by creating a lot of these bullshit cards at the apex that aren't even in front of real fans, so that they can just rotate through the lower level of each of the weight classes fighters, so that they get these contracts out of the way. But when James Krause gives true information to people in his Discord and they profit from it, it's a big fucking deal. Like, for instance, to the Alberta Commission, to the Toronto Commission, they have a problem when the little guy actually profits from true information. Then there's a problem with the integrity of the betting of the sport. But when the commissions get together with the corporate entities that provide them, and they have this symbiotic relationship, this corrupt relationship between the commission and the sport that works with the commission, when those guys blatantly fix fights out in broad daylight, there are no consequences, and the commissions who run these organizations and try to pretend like they give a shit whether there's integrity in gambling or not, when those guys decide, oh, well, what are you going to do? The judges saw it that way, so there's nothing to see here. Let's just move on. That's the life lesson. George Carlin said it best, Brady. It's a big club, and you're not in it. These guys that are in the commissions, these guys that own the corporations, that are in the boardrooms, whether it's the politicians, whether it's the CEOs and the board of directors of these corporations, it's all one big club. We're not in it. We have to play by the rules. They don't. And as nasty as what James Krause did was, and as bad of the optics of what he did were, giving information to people who bet a market down, created that really ridiculous situation with the Derek Minner fight. That's the small-time corruption that gets busted. But the big-time corruption is just allowed to go on over and over again. And as bad as the optics of what James Krause did were, I would ask the UFC community, the people who watch our show, the people who bet on these fights, how much worse is the optics of Dana White going on Patty Pimblett's podcast and then going out there and saying that fighters are paid well and what a great opportunity they give the fighters. And then somebody like Jared Gordon basically gets fucked out of a win bonus and a win and a fight that he won in a co-main event of a pay-per-view. He gets fucked out of that while Patty Pimblett and Dana White laugh their ass off about all these fighters that bitch about how they don't make enough money. And then they fix a fight out in broad daylight and give Patty Pimblett a win that he didn't deserve. And they took Magomed Ankalaev. They stole the championship away from that man who earned it in 5 rounds of combat in a cage. He beat Jan Blachowicz. And then the judges were told, now let's just make it a draw so that we can have another title fight that we could just fix 3 months from now between Teixeira and Hill. And frankly, Brady, I'm fucking sick of it. I think the UFC community is sick of it. And Dana White, if you're just going to be some corporate stooge, if you're just going to be this guy now that winds up towing the corporate line, that winds up, making excuses for corrupt judges, and you don't give a shit whether we pretend to have mixed martial arts or whether we actually have fights in there that are decided by people who have some skin in the game and who have some fucking integrity. I think it's absolutely disgusting. I think Dana White should just walk away from the sport. He's made enough money. He's got this awesome legacy. Don't be like BJ Penn and lose your last 6 fights and then, taint your own legacy, Dana. Walk away now before you become some corporate wanker who completely ruins the sport that people like us love.
Life lessons with Weezy. Well said. And yeah, by the way, I saw a video on Twitter with Dana White. They were announcing the Patty decision, and they scored it for Patty, of course. And Dana was with the Barstool guys, and then the decision was read off, and Dana looked at the Barstool guys and was like this. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it is, and that's really the unfortunate thing. The little guys, they get away with nothing. When I was, on the floor of the stock exchange, They arrested Martha Stewart for market manipulation. Well, I saw market manipulation happen on the floor of the Chicago Stock Exchange every single fucking day. They arrested Martha fucking Stewart. And this is the kind of shit that happens in life over and over and over again. And they're going to make an example out of James Krause, while these judges will be invited back to judge more mixed martial arts fights. And I think it's disgusting.
Yeah, it's terrible. I'm shocked they haven't done anything about it too. Like nothing. They've done nothing about the judging. And there's been, not just last night, but there's been tons of instances this year, right? Like there's been some very, very questionable decisions, questionable scorecards, and nothing's been done.
Another UFC fan favorite, Sean O'Malley. Just everybody had Jan winning that fight, but O'Malley got the decision. And I mean, it's just, you can't have a real sport and then have fake judging. It's really bad for the fans.
Yeah, so I would say I'd hope something's going to be done, but I doubt it. I mean, I don't really see anything being done, but kind of wishful thinking. But we'll see, But it's gotten bad.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yeah, for sure. But let's talk some fights. We do have a lot to talk about. We will get into 14 fights on this card?
Yes, sir.
All right. Do you want to shout out the chat before we get started? I see Eric in the chat. Eric bets fights. What is up? We got Victor. We got Kiwi. We got Bob. We got Dr. Daz. Daz, is that Daz Files with a new account? Dr. Daz there. I'm not sure, but hope so. We got Dan in the chat. We have Sean in the chat. We got Jeff. We got Joshua. We got JRMMA. We got Andy in the chat as well. We got UFC Planet Whisperer. We got Sound Chimpy. What is up? We got Nick in the chat as well. What is up, guys? Hit the like button. Also subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio. We're about to talk some UFC Vegas 66, and we are going to get into the first fight of the card. We have Sergey Morozov going against Journey Newson. We have Morozov, 33 years old, 5'6" with a 67-inch reach. Newson, 33 years old, 5'5" with a 67-inch reach. We have Morozov with a 1-inch height advantage, same age, same height. Morozov is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. He had a submission loss in his debut against Umar Nurmagomedov. Tough debut there. A decision win against Khalid Taha's next time out. A submission loss to Douglas Silva de Andrade. And then a decision win against William Paiva. As far as Journey Newson, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. He made his debut against Ricardo Ramos, lost by decision. He won by knockout against Domingo Pilarte. He lost by knockout to Randy Costa. He had a decision win against Fernie Garcia his last time out. Yeah, solid fight to kick off the card here. I'm a pretty big fan of Sergey Morozov. He had that kind of hiccup against Douglas Silva de Andrade where he got hurt plenty of times and eventually finished. But I like the guy. I think the guy has a really good skill set. We're well-rounded everywhere, and he's going against Journey Newsom here. BJJ black belt. He's whatever. He's okay. He's well-rounded. He's solid himself. So should be a good fight here. Weezy, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fun one to start off the card. I mean, we got pretty much even in the measurables here, as they're all identical except for Morozov being 1 inch taller. The experience advantage goes to Morozov. He's got 10 more pro fights, 110 more minutes in the pro cage, and he's been a pro fighter for 7.5 more years than Journey. Certainly he's been the same amount of UFC fights, though, as Journey, but he has 16 more minutes in the UFC cage. When it comes to the finish stats and the durability, I'm giving a slight edge to Journey here. He's got the slightly better finish rate as a pro, 63% for Journey, 61% for Morozov. And at the UFC level, he's finished one of his 2 wins, while Morozov has not finished any of his. Sergey has been finished in both of his UFC losses, both by submission, while Newson has been knocked out in 2 of 3 pro losses. These guys have been finished in a combined 7 of 9 pro losses. So this could be a decent violence spot if it's at plus money because these guys have not been durable. The striking advantage I'm going to give to Journey Newsom as he's got the better UFC striking metrics, but it's in a small sample size, so it doesn't mean that much. Journey's got the better significant strike differential, positive 0.64 and negative 0.02 for Morozov. He's got the better knockdowns for 15 minutes at 0.48 to 0.32 for Morozov. Striking defense, 65% for Newson, 57% for Morozov. And knockdowns absorbed, 0.48 per 15 minutes for Newson, and it's 0.96 for Morozov. Journey throws 1.53 more significant strike attempts than his opponents, while Morozov throws 0.95 less. Morozov is much more accurate, though, 48% to 36% for Newsom. However, Morozov spends over 42% of his cage time in control time positions, while for Newson, it's almost 89% that he's spending at striking range. So it looks like Newson's definitely more comfortable standing, and Morozov would rather get the fight to the ground and grapple. Newson throws a lot of kicks, so Morozov could catch those kicks as a way to enter on takedowns. When it comes to the grappling, that's Morozov. He's very active with his grappling game. He's attempted 34 takedowns in 4 UFC fights. He gets more takedowns per 15 minutes than Journey does, 2.87 for Morozov, 0.96 for Journey. And the control time, 33.5% for Morozov and only 3% for Journey. The takedown defense, 65% for Morozov, 0% takedown defense for Journey Newson. And the control time allowed is almost the same, right around 9%. So I see Sergey being much more likely to go to the grappling and win minutes in those exchanges. And Journey showing 0% takedown defense on 3 attempts thus far is very encouraging if you're on that Sergey Morozov side. And Morozov's got the strength of schedule advantage, as neither guy has really good strength of schedule, but Sergey's metrics overall and in his wins, they're better than Journey's. So Sergey's got the experience advantage, the grappling advantage, the strength of schedule advantage, while Newson's got a slight finish stats and durability advantage and the better UFC striking metrics. This should be a good fight. I mean, both guys are dangerous on the feet. Morozov is the way better minute winner in the grappling exchanges. So for that reason, I'll pick Morozov to win by decision, because I don't think Morozov is going to really be out of his depth here on the feet, but I think he will be able to win minutes with the grappling exchanges. How do you see this one going?
Yes, I think somebody in the chat said it. I mean, I just would not feel comfortable parlaying Morozov at this price tag. He opened up minus 200. He's currently minus 240. Newson is plus 205. I agree 100%. I think he's going to be the minute winner. I think he's going to get takedowns at will. It's just, I don't know. I can't trust the guy. The guy's chin is very questionable. He's getting hurt in a lot of his fights. He's been knocked out before, and he's also been subbed 3 times, which kind of scares me going against a black belt in Newson. So, yeah, I think Morozov should win this fight, but the fact that he has been finished a ton, it would be the one thing that would scare me away as far as parlaying the guy. But yeah, as far as a pick, I do lean Morozov. But yeah, like you said, violence could be interesting just due to the fact that Morozov has been finished in 4 of 5, and then Newson has been finished in 2 of 3. Any thoughts on the line for yourself? Do you think it's too wide? Potential parlay piece for you, or how do you feel about this line?
No, definitely not a potential parlay piece. I've backed Morozov a couple of different times in the Paiva fight and in the Silva de Andrade fight, and the Silva de Andrade fight, he won that first round. And actually, I think he dropped Silva de Andrade, and he looked like he was going to cruise to a victory in that fight. But yeah, dude, Sergey's been dropped 3 times in 4 UFC fights. And he does really need to get this fight to the ground in order to win minutes and be really, to feel like he's going to cover that price tag. So Journey Newson's a guy who has 0% takedown defense, but still, he's been controlled less than 10% of his UFC cage time. And like you said, he's a black belt too. So I wouldn't feel comfortable laying that number with Sergey here. It's probably dog or pass for me.
Yeah, I think it might be probably pass or pass for me. Or like I said, maybe a violence angle depending on the line, which by the way, probability tomorrow, probability's been killing it, man. Like we've been making some serious money on a lot of these time props this year.
Yeah, and that's one thing that the judges can't screw you
exactly,
on. I mean, like it's only the ref that can screw you. And I got screwed by the ref 2 weeks ago with Mergliata. So these guys, they find a number of different ways to screw you sometimes, but you just got to hope that every once in a while you're on the right side of it, and then it balances out in the end.
Dude, that's why I love violence bets. I mean, just takes the judges completely out of it, and love cashing some violence there. And this might be one I look at depending on the line. But we'll move on to the next fight. We have a very good fight here. I'm kind of shocked it's this far down on the card. We have Manel Kopp going against David Dvorak. We have Dvorak, 30 years old, 5'5" with a 68-inch reach. Kopp, 29 years old, 5'5" with a 68-inch reach. Manel Kopp, 1 year younger, same height, same reach there for the two. Dvorak is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. I believe he made his debut against Bruno Silva, won that fight by decision, won a decision against Jordan Espinoza. He won by submission against Juan Camilo Honduras, and then he lost a decision to Mateus Nicolau. Manel Kopp is 3-2 in his last 5 fights, made his debut against Alexander Pantoja, lost that fight by decision, lost a split decision to Mateus Nicolau. and then knocked out Ode Osborne, and then knocked out Zaga Ismagulov. Manel Kape is just a fascinating fighter. I mean, this guy is a flyweight who is reliant on moment winning. I mean, this guy is a terrible minute winner at times. I think he's done a little bit better as of late, but we saw in the Pantoja fight, he went out there and just did nothing. We saw in the Nicolau fight, he went out there and did nothing. He lost both those fights, but when he lets his hands go, he's very dangerous. He's well-rounded. I believe he's a brown belt now. He's rounding out his game, and he has a ton of power. The guy's like a 94% finish rate for a flyweight here. So, but, the concern with Manel Kape is he can be low volume at times, and if this fight does go the distance, you're looking at probably a very close fight. So I think a lot of times he has been reliant on that finish and at flyweight. That is something a little bit worrisome. So yeah, it's an interesting fight here, Weezy. I'm curious to your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, and the reason it's this far down in the card is because Manel Kape is going to pull out with, a botched weight cut like at some point on Thursday. So we're going to be down to 13, fights at that point. But before that happens, let's talk about the stats that we have available to us here. Kape's got a slight edge in the measurables here. He's a year and a half younger. He's the southpaw in the southpaw versus orthodox matchup. These guys have got the same height and reach, though. The experience edge goes to Dvorak, though, as he's got one more pro fight, almost 75 more minutes in the pro cage, and he's been a pro for 2 more years. He has almost 10 more minutes in the UFC cage than Kape, despite having the same amount of UFC fights. The durability and finish stats advantage goes to Manel here, as he's got the better finish rate both as a pro. I think it's for Manel, it's 94%, and then it's 80% for Dvorak. And at the UFC level, it's 100% for Kape, 33% for Dvorak. Both guys are hard to finish, and neither has been finished at the UFC level. And striking advantage, it's going to go to Dvorak. He'll be the better minute winner here, and Kape will have the proverbial puncher's chance. Dvorak has the better significant strike differential, 0.87 to 0.1 for Kape. The significant strike attempts differential, he throws about one more significant strike per minute than his opponents, while Kape throws less. Striking defense, 62% for Dvorak, 52% for Kape. It's Kape who has the power, though, and he lands 1.16 knockdowns per 15 minutes, and Dvorak lands 0. In addition, Dvorak has been dropped once, while Kape has never been dropped. Dvorak should be the minute winner because Kape just looks for the kill, but he's low volume outside of that, Kape will definitely be the more dangerous, dynamic, and powerful striker, though. And he just needs one big shot to change the trajectory of this fight. But he will be losing this fight up until the point that he wins it. That's how Kape is. Neither guy grapples at all, really. Kape does actually do a decent job of mixing in wrestling, but he's not going to do that here. Dvorak's got 81% takedown defense. He's been controlled less than 5% of his UFC career. So, I don't think Kape's going to waste time trying to mix in grappling to win minutes here because I don't think he's going to be successful. The strength to schedule advantage goes to Kape. He's fought the much better names, Pantoja, Nicolau, Ode Osborne, Zhalgas Zhumagulov, and the more experienced competition in comparison to Dvorak. So Dvorak, he's got the slight experience advantage, the better striking metrics to win minutes, and he's fought the UFC competition with the better win-loss ratio. Kape, though, is 1.5 years younger. He's the southpaw. He's the slightly better finisher as a pro and the way better finisher at the UFC level. And he has the power, the moment winning, and the strength to schedule advantages. I have no faith, though, in Manel Kape. He won't make weight. He's notoriously low volume. He waits for the big shot to land, and he'll gladly lose minutes the entire time while he waits to land that big shot. And you just don't ever want to lay minus 250 on somebody that fights like that, especially in a division at 125 pounds where it's so important to be well-rounded, to be busy, to be a minute winner, because it's hard to find knockouts at this level. People are fast and athletic, and they're hard to find. And Manel Kape doesn't look hard for people. He just kind of waits to land that big shot. And Dvorak's not stupid. Dvorak's won a lot of decisions in his career, and Manel Kape in his career is 1-4 in decisions. Terrible minute winner, great moment winner. So I love to fade these guys that are just basically looking to land the one big shot, have the puncher's chance. If the puncher's chance guy is minus 250, my money's on the underdog. So I'm picking Dvorak to win by decision.
Yeah, I can't believe this line, man. I mean, Manel Kopp opened up as a minus 160 favorite. He's currently minus 235. David Dvorak opening up plus 140, currently plus 200. Like, what could go wrong laying minus 235 on a guy who is reliant on a finish at flyweight?
Yeah, he lost his first 2 UFC decisions because he did nothing.
Yeah.
And believe me, you know, like he strikes me as a Sean Strickland type that would do something stupid and then come out in an interview 2 days later and talk about, I do that stupid shit all over again. And that's what Kopp always has been. You know, he's lazy. He doesn't make weight. You know, he's notorious for being the least hardworking guy in the gym. He relies entirely on his talent. He's not very bright. And, you know, he's probably going to need to land a big shot here to win. But he is that explosive. He's that guy. He's the guy at 125 that can lose 13 and a half minutes straight of a fight and then land one big spectacular shot. And it'll be on a highlight reel. And anybody that sees that highlight will be like, wow, this guy Kopp's awesome. And it's like, well, yeah, he's awesome for about 3 seconds every fight.
Yeah. What about the Dvorak decision only could be something interesting this week? Because if this fight does go the distance, it's really hard to see Manel Kopp having a good shot to win just because he does nothing.
Yeah. No, that's a fantastic. I'm going to write that one down right below life lessons with Uncle Weezy on my notebook right now. The Dvorak decision only, because that's a very good look.
Yeah.
And because he's a big, underdog here, you could probably get a good number on that.
Yeah, that is something that will be I will be looking at this week for sure. Somebody said decision no bet Kopp. Yeah, I think that's a good look as well, but it's probably going to be pretty juiced. But Dvorak decision only, just in case Kopp does finish him, which it could happen. Kopp's a very dangerous guy when he does let his hands go. All right, let's keep moving on. We have Bryan Battle going against Rinat Fakhretdinov. We have Bryan Battle, 28 years old, 6'1" with a 77-inch reach. Fakhretdinov, 31 years old, 6 foot with a 74-inch reach. Bryan Battle, 3 years younger, 1-inch height advantage and a 3-inch reach advantage. Bryan Battle was 5-0 in his last 5 fights, made his debut against Tresean Gore, won that fight by decision, and then he knocked out Takashi Sato in the very first round. Fakhretdinov is 5-0 in his last 5 fights. He made his debut against Andreas Michailidis, and he won that fight by decision. I'm a big fan of Bryan Battle. I think this guy has made a ton of improvements since being in the Tough House. He's went out there, he looked good against Gore, got the decision win, showed a lot of toughness, incredible volume, cardio. And then in his last fight, I liked Battle to beat Sato, but I was not expecting him to go out there and finish Sato in like 60 seconds. Battle's dangerous everywhere the fight goes. He got a submission win over Petrosky, on the Ultimate Fighter as well. The guy's very good. And Fakhretdinov, he's really good in his own right. There were some kind of question marks with Fakhretdinov coming in. And he looked good. I kind of wanted him to finish Michailidis in that fight. Michailidis had been finished, I think, in all of losses prior to that, but he played it safe, one decision. He looked good. This is going to be a good fight, Weezy. Fakhretdinov was supposed to fight. He was supposed to fight.
Yeah, I've got it right here. Fakhretdinov was supposed to fight Michael Morales, so he would have gotten his ass shaved there, dude.
Ooh, that'd have been a good fight. But yeah, Bryan Battle is stepping in on short notice. And yeah, another pretty good fight here on the prelims.
Yeah, agreed, man. And I've really liked what I've seen out of Bryan Battle, too. It is a fight that I taped late last night after I was drunk and punched several holes in the wall. So I don't know how much of it I'll remember, but these are my drunken notes on the fight. The measurables advantage goes to Bryan Battle here. He's 3 years younger. He's an inch taller, and he's got a 3-inch reach advantage. The experience advantage goes to Fakhretdinov overall, but Bryan Battle at the UFC level. So Rinat's got 11 more fights, almost 70 more minutes in the pro cage, and he's been a pro fighter for 6 more years than Bryan has. But it's Bryan who has the UFC experience advantage, though, with 2 more fights and 8 more minutes in the UFC cage. Plus, Battle was recently in the Tough House, which is like a crash course in MMA, so Battle has been the far more active fighter recently. The finish stats and durability edge goes to Battle here. Even though Rinat has the better finish rate as a pro, Rinat 84%, Battle 75%. It's Battle who's finished 2 of his 3 UFC wins. And Rinat couldn't finish Andreas Michailidis, and Michailidis actually gassed walking out to the cage and was just exhausted from having to climb those 3 stairs to get into the cage. And despite the fact that he gassed out, then Rinat still couldn't finish him. And in addition to that, Brady, Rinat's finishes come against a bunch of 0-0 Russian drunkards, and they took pro fights and were paid with a bottle of vodka. So Battle was finished by sub in his only pro loss, and Rinat has never been finished. But I think that, at this level, it's going to be Battle who's the better finisher. For striking, the advantage goes to Battle for sure. He's a good striker. He moves laterally very well. He throws a ton of volume. And at the UFC level, he's been 57% accurate, and he's got a positive 2.65 significant strike differential. He also throws 4.83 more significant strike attempts per minute than his opponents do. The 42% striking defensive Battle leaves a lot to be desired, though. Rinat seems to be primarily a grappler. He throws with a lot of power on the feet, but he does prefer to wrestle and grapple, and that's probably his best path here, as Brian's way more athletic, he's way faster, and he's got the superior technical stand-up here. The grappling advantage goes to Rinat. In his only UFC fight, he accrued 86.67% control time on 5 takedowns. He stopped both of Michailidis' takedown attempts and outcontrolled them at a 20-to-1 ratio. He looks to wrestle first, and that will be the best game plan here against Battle, who has 55.56% takedown defense and has been controlled for 17% of his UFC cage time. That being said, Battle has an underrated submission game, and he does get back up after being taken down. Battle also has excellent cardio, so I see it being difficult for Rinat to have success in the grappling here, but if he does, it could be a long night for Battle. The strength of schedule, that goes to Battle, as he's got the edge, in my opinion, because he was in the house and had fights against solid competition there like Andre Petroski. And if you include the tough fights, Brian is on a 9-fight winning streak right now. Rinat has wins over former UFC fighters in Alberto Uda and Eric Spicely on the regional scene, but outside of that, there are really no noticeable wins for Rinat. So Battle's got the measurables advantage. He's got the UFC experience advantage, the finish stats, the striking, and the slight strength of schedule advantage, while Rinat has the pro experience advantage. He's been durable, and he's got the grappling and wrestling advantages here, in my opinion. I like this spot for Battle, though. He's got great conditioning. He's fast. He moves well on his feet. He deals well with pressure. He saw a lot of pressure from a lot of different opponents, from Gore, from that dude in the house, Kemran Lachinov. That dude didn't take a backward step the entire fight and just walked forward like a zombie. And he dealt with it in his last fight, too. So I think it's something that he's going to see from Rinat. Rinat's going to walk forward. He's going to use his striking to close the distance, to get in on the clinch with Battle and try to take him down. But it's not going to be nearly as easy as it was against, Michailidis, who has no cardio at all. Brian Battle's going to be there for the full 3 rounds. And Brian Battle's got some really nasty front chokes. So I think it's going to be hard for Rinat to get Brian down. I think Brian's going to be live to choke him out if he gets sloppy and lazy entering on those takedowns in the 2nd and 3rd round here. And Battle's going to piece him up on the feet here, man. So I do like Brian to win this fight late or by decision.
Yeah, I like it, and I wish we had odds on this one. Unfortunately, they don't, which is weird. I feel like they announced that fight like at least a week ago, right? So
Yeah, I this has been on Tapology for like 5 days now, and I've been looking, I've been refreshing Bet Online to see what they're doing with this line. It's not open anywhere for some reason.
that's odd. That is very odd, but yeah, we'll just see where they line him. I'm hoping he's a dog in this matchup. We'll have to see, but yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons to like him. I think it is going to be a close fight, though. Brian Battle. There's a lot of reasons to like the guy: the striking, the volume, the cardio. He can push a pace. Very good submission game, well-rounded guy, and just every time we've been seeing him, I mean, he's just leveling up. He's getting better and better. He's making a ton of improvements. So we could see an even better version of Brian Battle this time around against Rinat Fakhretdinov. So yeah, no line on this one yet, but I do lean Battle myself.
Yep, me and you both.
All right, let us keep on moving on. We have Rafa Garcia going against Maheshate. We got Garcia, who is 28 years old, 5'7" with a 70-inch reach. Maheshate, 23 years old, 6 foot, with a 71-inch reach. Maheshate, 5 years younger, and he's going to have a 5-inch height advantage and a 1-inch reach advantage. Garcia's 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Decision loss to Nasrat Hakprast, a decision loss to Chris Grutzmacher, a decision win against Natan Levy, a submission win against Jesse Ronson, and then a decision loss against Drakkar Klose. Maheshate is 5-0 in his last 5 fights. He made his debut against Steve Garcia and won that fight by first round knockout. So yeah, Maheshate, Weezy, isn't he a Greco-Roman world champion in China? Is that
I don't
what he is?
I don't know if he's a Chinese champion. He's like, he won some Chinese tournaments, for Greco-Roman wrestling. Yeah, which doesn't really mean a goddamn thing. Like I say, these guys get bodied by high school kids in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, well, we got a striker versus grappler matchup here. Maheshate, he looks good on the feet. It's just there are some question marks with that takedown defense that I think are going to be tested here against Garcia. I think it's a good spot for Garcia. I'm kind of confused why the line is closing up, throughout the last couple days. But yeah, Garcia was one spot that kind of really stuck out to me. But yeah, Maheshate is only 23 years old. We could see massive and jumps improvement out of this guy. So a lot to see. But Weezy, what are your thoughts on this fight here?
Yeah, so Maheshate is going to be much, much, much bigger than Rafa Garcia. He's 5 years younger. He's 5 inches taller, and he's got a 1-inch reach advantage. It's orthodox versus orthodox, and Maheshate will be the much taller, longer guy in this spot. He uses a lot of kicks, while Garcia will kick to the low legs mostly, but mostly just to the low legs. I think Maheshate will be the guy that's going to be able to use that length in order to kind of keep the distance from Garcia here. But Garcia's got a lot more experience. He's got 8 more professional fights, 40 more minutes in the pro cage, and almost 5 more years as a pro fighter. Rafa's also got the UFC experience advantage with 3 more UFC fights and over 50 more minutes in the UFC cage. The finish stats and durability edge, that goes to Garcia as well, as Rafa's got the better finish rate as a pro. 70% for him, 57% for Maheshate, and both dudes have finished 1 of 2 UFC wins. Neither dude has ever been finished, so they're both pretty durable. The striking advantage, that's Maheshate for sure. He's got really nice kickboxing. He uses kicks to keep distance well, and he's got a really fast piston-like straight right down the pipe that he uses as his primary weapon. He's also got really nice step-in and jump knees. He definitely uses his size and length to his advantage when he strikes. Maheshate's got the better significant strike differential at positive 0.06 to negative 1.49 for Garcia. He's got the better significant strike attempt differential as he throws 2.83 more significant strike attempts than his opponents do, while Rafa throws 1.71 less. And he's got the much better power numbers. 1.85 knockdowns per 15 minutes compared to 0 for Rafa Garcia, and the striking defense is better too. Neither guy's ever been knocked down at the UFC level, but that grappling advantage, that goes to Rafa Garcia. He's been very active going for takedowns and winning minutes, controlling his opponents. He's 18 of 42 on his takedown attempts. That's almost 43%, averaging 3.87 takedowns per 15 minutes, and he's out-controlling his opponents 28.5% to 4.25%. Rafa's shown 76% takedown defense thus far on 21 takedown attempts against, and he's been controlled for less than 3 minutes out of 70 in the UFC cage. Maheshate hasn't faced a takedown attempt according to the stats yet, but this will likely change unless he sparks Garcia early here. Garcia will be far more likely to go to the grappling and far more likely to win minutes in those exchanges should they happen. The strength of schedule advantage goes to Garcia. He's got 5 UFC fights, while Maheshate has 1, and he's got 1 Dana White Contender Series fight. So obviously Garcia's faced the much better competition, not only at the UFC level, but definitely on the regional scene as well. There's virtually no regional scene footage at all of Maheshate, so it's almost impossible to know what this kid's skill set is outside of the stand-up. He got drowned in M1 by Goncharov, but that was back in 2019. And there's no regional scene footage of any of the 5 fights that took place after that. But they were all against opponents with losing records or 0 wins. So it's entirely possible that Garcia could out-wrestle Maheshate for 3 rounds here. So Garcia's got the overall and the UFC experience advantage. He's got the better finish stats. He's been more durable. and he's got the grappling and strength of schedule advantages, while Maheshate has nice measurables and striking advantages here. I think Maheshate cleanly wins minutes and moments on the feet, and Garcia should dominate the grappling exchanges here. It's a very interesting striker versus grappler matchup, but I'm actually leaning with Maheshate. And I said to you, Brady, when these lines opened before I watched any tape, that Rafa Garcia was the most intriguing line on the slate. But then when I go and I watch, he's gonna be completely out of his depth on the feet in this fight. And in order for him to win this fight, he's gonna have to take Maheshate down, I believe, in every single round, because I don't think the striking exchanges are even going to be close in this one. So, and Garcia is a guy who gets, he's got 18 takedowns, but he's got like less than 20 minutes of control time. And a lot of that control time is on the fence too. So it's not like Garcia is the kind of guy who takes you down once and then you just stay there for 3 minutes. I think Maheshate will probably be getting up. So I think he's actually a decent dog shot here on Maheshate. I think he wins this fight.
Well, he would have been a dog shot, but the line it's gone now. It's now minus 104 for Maheshate, and then Garcia's minus 116. So yeah, money is coming in on the Maheshate side. Yeah, I do lean towards Garcia, but there are some concerns. Like the Gritzmacher fight really concerns me. Like the cardio of Garcia really concerns me. And you brought up a good point: the fact that he's getting a lot of takedowns and he's attempting a lot of takedowns, which I do like, but he's not controlling with those takedowns. And yeah, it's scary. The cardio, the control, it is scary. So we'll have to see. So yeah, it is. I do lean Garcia, but yeah, I don't know if I'll bet it. Especially, yeah, I don't think I'll touch it. I've done a good job this year at not betting guys with cardio issues, and he's somebody that has had some cardio issues in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting fight, but I just think that I really like what I see on the feet from Maheshate, so that's good. And want to say what's up to James Krause, the 1% Club in the chat there. Yeah, I hope you don't go to federal prison, James. You just got to keep your mouth shut and let your lawyers do all the talking.
Absolutely. Shout out to James Krause there. All right, we'll move on to the next fight. And we have a very good fight. Is this fight really on the prelims? Is this a joke?
It is, dude.
That's
it
crazy.
Is because there's entirely too many syllables in both of their names, and that's why this is not going to be on the main card. It wouldn't even fit on the marquee when you put both names next to each other.
Gotcha. That's got to be why. Because this is a freaking main card fight all day. It's Said Nurmagomedov going against Said-Yakub Kakhramonov. We got Nurmagomedov. Man, that was tough. That was tough to pronounce. But we got Nurmagomedov. He's 30 years old, 5'8", 70-inch reach. Kakhramonov, he is 27 years old, 5'7", with a 69.5-inch reach. Kakhramonov, 3 years younger. Nurmagomedov, 1-inch height advantage and a 1/2 inch of reach advantage. Nurmagomedov is 4-1 in his last 5 fights, a knockout win against Ricardo Ramos, a decision loss to Jaime Barcelos, a knockout win against Mark Striegel, a submission win against Cody Stamann, a decision win against Douglas Silva de Andrade. As far as Said-Yakub Kakhramonov, he has 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He made his debut against Trevin Jones on very short notice, won that fight by submission, and then he went out there and he won by decision against Ronnie Lawrence. Yeah, Kakhramonov, man. I mean, this is a guy that it really impressed me in the Trevin Jones fight. He was a pretty big dog in that matchup. And then in the Ronnie Lawrence fight, like he went out there and he Ronnie Lawrence. He took him down a ton of times, was able to control Ronnie Lawrence for a good portion of that fight. Kakhramonov is no joke at all. His striking is very good. He has power. He has wrestling. Very well-rounded guy. But this is going to be a big test, a very big test against Said Nurmagomedov, who's a very, very good fighter, has fought some very, very good guys like a Cody Stamann, like a Barcelos. So I think it's a great test for Kakhramonov here, and it is going to be one that I'm curious to see if he passes because Nurmagomedov is no joke. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this fight? Probably one of the higher-level fights on the card on the prelims. So we'll see if it moves to the main card, but prelims makes no sense for this one.
Yeah, agreed. Especially as of right now, they've got Amir Albazi versus Alessandro Costa on the main card, and this one is not. This is a very, very high-level fight, and it's really just indicative of what's going on in the bantamweight division right now. The bantamweight division is incredibly stacked, and you got guys like Kakhramonov, who's not even really like top 30, and he's going out there and he's He's a coin flip against a stud like Said Nurmagomedov. What a great fight this is. So Kakhramonov's got a slight edge in the measurables here. He's 3.5 years younger than Nurmagomedov. But it's Nurmagomedov. It's just going to be slightly taller. He's got a half-inch reach advantage here, but both guys are orthodox fighters. Nurmagomedov has got the finish stats and the durability advantage here. Even though Kakhramonov has the better finish rate as a pro, 70% for Said Yokub, and it's 50% for Nurmagomedov. It's Nurmagomedov who has the better finish rate thus far in the UFC, with a 60% finish rate to 50% for Said Yokub. Kakhramonov has been finished once in 2 pro losses, and Nurmagomedov has never been finished. So I'll give the durability edge to Nurmagomedov here. The striking advantage I'm giving to Nurmagomedov. Said has the better significant strike differential, positive 1.95 to positive 1.38. He's got the better knockdowns per 15 minutes, as he's got 0.31 to 0 for Said Yokub. Striking defense is about 3% better than Said Yokub's, and his significant strike differential on attempts is better at 3.32 to 2.02 for Said Yokub. In addition to that, Said's fights are at striking range 80% of the time, while for Kakhramonov, it's less than 25% of the time. So clearly it looks as if Nurmagomedov will be the guy who's more comfortable on the feet. He uses his kicks to manage distance well, and that will be important here because Kakhramonov really does throw heat when he's on the feet. He uses his striking to close the range and enter on his takedown attempts and clinch control positions that he likes to get into. The grappling advantage, I'm going to give it to Kakhramonov, but it's because we've actually seen him wrestle successfully thus far at the UFC level. But I'm not entirely sure who the better wrestler is here. I wouldn't be surprised if Nurmagomedov was actually the much better wrestler. But Nurmagomedov clearly prefers to strike, even though he's a solid wrestler. And you see him using that wrestling on the regional scene. But what was shocking to see at the time was Kakhramonov going out there and out wrestling Ronnie Lawrence the way he did, getting 10 takedowns and 739 seconds of control time. So like you said, Brady, he Ronnie Lawrence. The most amount of control time Said has ever gotten in the UFC is 120 seconds versus Justin Scoggins. And Said Nurmagomedov only has 2 takedowns in 19 attempts in 6 UFC fights. So we can't count on him to win minutes in the grappling in this matchup based on prior UFC experience. But I think it's important to note that while Ronnie Lawrence has had a lot of success wrestling at the UFC level, that Ronnie Lawrence doesn't come from a wrestling background. He never really did wrestle as far as I know. I just think it's something that he learned in the mixed martial arts gym, and because he's got amazing cardio and pace, it's something that he's able to successfully mix into his game against people that aren't great wrestlers. But when we saw Kakhramonov fight Lawrence, it was like, hey, I wrestle too, and I've been doing it, as a sport since I was a kid. And we saw that difference there. Well, as much time as Kakhramonov has spent in the wrestling room, and he is a very good wrestler, you guys know when your last name's Nurmagomedov, even if you're a striker first, you've been grappling with killers since you've been a kid. So I wouldn't be surprised, even though Kakhramonov's putting up the much better metrics. I say Nurmagomedov might actually be the better grappler here. The strength of schedule advantage, though, that goes to Nurmagomedov as well, as both of these guys have had good levels of competition faced. However, Said has 4 more UFC level fights, and he's faced names like Douglas Silva de Andrade, Cody Stamen, Hani Barcelos, Ricardo Ramos. While Said Yokub has only faced Ronnie Lawrence and Trevin Jones, but he's faced Umar Nurmagomedov, Pipe Vargas, Askar over on the regional scene. So this is a high-level bantamweight fight. I'm leaning Said Nurmagomedov at this point, but I definitely need to look further into it. But I could see Said looking a lot better than minus 110 here if it turns out, in fact, that he is the better wrestler, because I'm pretty sure he's the better striker here, and he's definitely more experienced and has fought the better brand of competition.
Yeah, some interesting things with the line on this one. So Said Yakub Kakhramonov, he was a big dog against Trevin Jones. He was plus 110 against Ronnie Lawrence, and now he's a pick'em against Said Yakub Kakhramonov. I mean, that's a big jump up from, a Ronnie Lawrence or a Trevin Jones, like a big, big, big step up. And now he's a pick'em.
Yeah, it's wild, right? I mean, but he's looked really good. I mean, like, there's no doubt that this kid Kakhramonov is just getting started. He's still only 27 years old. He's fighting Umar Nurmagomedov on the regional scene and actually having a competitive fight with that stud. He's not afraid of anybody. He was the only one who raised his hand to take this fight, as a matter of fact. He went out on Twitter and he said, basically, hey, nobody else wants this fight. I want it, because I think I can hang with the best in the world, and I'm going to prove it. So I'm really looking forward to this fight. This is super high level on both sides here, and I can't wait to see who gets their hand raised.
Yeah, me too. I'm very, very high on both guys. I think they're incredible. So yeah, it should be a phenomenal, phenomenal fight there. All right, next we have my favorite guy to fade. I love fading Deron Winn. I don't know what it is with the guy, but I just love fading the guy. He's taking on Julian Marquez. Marquez is 32 years old, 6'2" with a 72-inch reach. Deron Winn, 33 years old, 5'6" with a 70-inch reach. Marquez is 1 year younger. He's going to have an 8-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach advantage. Marquez is 3-2 in his last 5 fights, a submission win against Darren Stewart, a decision loss to Alessio Di Chirico, a submission win against Maki Patolo, a submission win against Sam Alvey, a knockout loss to Gregory Rodriguez. Deron Winn, 2-3 in his last 5 fights, a decision win against Eric Spicely, a decision loss to Darren Stewart, a submission loss to Gerald Mearshart, a decision win against Antonio Ohoyo, and a knockout loss to Phil Haas his last time out. So obviously what sticks out in every Deron Winn fight is going to be the size disadvantage that he's going to be at. An 8-inch height disadvantage for Deron Winn in this fight. Like, Marquez is a big dude, and he hits very hard. He has a very good submission game. He's as tough as nails. I think this is a pretty rough matchup for Deron Winn here. I mean, I guess I could see a scenario where Deron Winn goes out there and out wrestles Marquez across 15 minutes, but I don't know. I don't think that's the most likely outcome here because he's going to be playing with fire really anywhere the fight goes. Marquez has that submission game, and on the feet, he's going to be at a big disadvantage. And, I don't trust the chin of Deron Winn. He's been hurt multiple times, not only against Phil Haas, but got hurt and subbed by Gerald Mearshart as well. I think Marquez finishes Deron Winn here, and yeah, I like Marquez quite a bit. So yeah, give me Marquez in this one. This is a pick that I feel pretty good about. Like I said, I don't know what it is. I just always like to fade Deron Winn. We'll see if it pays out here. So Weezy, what do you think about this fight here?
Yeah, I think if you faded both of these guys over a long timeline in the UFC, you'd be making a lot of money because there's just massive holes in both of these guys' games. The measurables advantage obviously goes to Marquez because Deron Winn is at a measurables disadvantage against everybody in the bantamweight division, the featherweight division, the lightweight division, the welterweight division, and of course in the middleweight division. Julian's 1 year younger, 8 inches taller, 2-inch reach advantage, both orthodox fighters. The experience is pretty much even. The finish stats and durability, I mean, that's Marquez all day. Julian's got the better finish rate as a pro, a 100% finish rate in his 9 pro wins. And he's finished all of his UFC wins, and Deron Winn only has a 57% finish rate as a pro, and he's never finished a UFC win. Deron isn't finishing anyone at the UFC level without there being like a DQ or an injury. Marquez also has legendary durability. He leans on it heavily as he prefers to block punches with his face. Julian has been finished once in 3 pro losses, and Winn has been finished twice. The striking advantage goes to Marquez. He's the better moment winner for sure on the feet, and he has the better UFC metrics. His significant strike differential is better, positive 0.34 to negative 1.67 for Winn. The significant strike volume differential is 1.66 to negative 1.3. The knockdowns per 15, 0.55 for Marquez. Winn has never landed a knockdown. And the striking defense is actually better for Julian Marquez, which is hilarious because it's almost impossible to miss Julian Marquez when you throw a punch at his head. He doesn't move his head. He relies entirely on his chin, and he just blocks punches with his face. But Deron Winn's striking defense is actually worse at 46%. So Marquez really does need to keep this fight on the feet in order to have the best chance to win minutes and moments. but the grappling advantage is going to be all Duran Win, in my opinion. He's got excellent wrestling. He's got excellent top control. He's 53% in his takedown attempts. He averages 4.28 takedowns per 15 minutes. He outcontrols his opponents 28.5% to 3.23%. Even though Win has 40% takedown defense, he's only been controlled by his opponents for just over 2 of the 66 minutes that he's been in the UFC cage. Julian's got 0 UFC takedowns, and he's shown a pitiful 53% takedown defense on 30 attempts against, and he's allowing 3.84 takedowns per 15 minutes and almost 32% control time. This is a tailor-made matchup for a fighter like Win to get takedowns, top control, and ground and pound his way to a unanimous decision victory. Duran just needs to be careful of the submission game of Marquez, because Marquez is attempting 3 submission attempts per 15 minutes. It's a very high number. But if Win can take Julian down and avoid the submission attempts, he could easily cruise to a win here. I mean, we saw Maki Pitolo look like fucking look like kale out there. I mean, it looked like a national championship wrestler against Julian Marquez, and Marquez pulls off a Hail Mary submission because Pitolo gassed out in the third. He lost every minute of that fight. So it's just, it looks like Win can win minutes. Marquez has got the strength of schedule advantage, though. He's got the similar overall metrics to Win, but I like his UFC wins better than I like Duran's. But, this is a classic striker versus grappler matchup here. But Marquez isn't much of a striker, to be honest, and neither is Win. Julian has the measurables, the overall experience, the finish stats and durability, the striking, and the strength of schedule advantages here. While Duran has more UFC cage time, he's the better wrestler and the better minute winner in the grappling exchanges. I'm not high on either of these guys, but I do think there's a clear path here to victory for Win if he wrestles early and often, and if he stays safe from the submission attempts of Marquez. I love the finish-only prop for Marquez, and I love the decision-only prop for Win. Marquez inside the distance or by submission is worth a stab, and so is Win by decision. We need to see Duran on the scales, though, because even though this guy is only 5'6", he has a nightmare of a time getting down to 186.
Yeah, he looked bad last time on the scales against Phil Haas. Remember that? But yeah, I wrote the same thing down. I wrote down the finish only for Marquez. I think it's a great way to play it, because is there a scenario where Duran Win goes out there and now wrestles Marquez for 15 minutes? Yeah, and you brought up the Maki Pitolo fight. I mean, that is a horrible look. That is a horrible, horrible, horrible look. I just don't see Duran Win surviving 15 minutes against Marquez. I could see Win winning minutes, but I think at some point he's going to run into a big shot. He's going to get caught in something. He's going to tire out from taking down the much bigger Marquez over and over again. So I see Marquez finishing at some point in this fight. That's why I'll lean him. But yeah, the finish only, if I can get in anywhere around the money line where it's at now, minus 160 to minus 200, nobody's finishing Julian Marquez unless you are Gregory Rodriguez, or B, you bring a shovel into the cage, and Duran Win will not really be either of those. So I think the finish only is a great way to play this.
Yeah, and I'll be taking a look at not only the decision only prop, but if they don't price that right, I mean, Darren Win by decision at plus 200 or plus 250, that could be an interesting way to play this, because he's not going to finish Julian Marquez, but he could win minutes. And Marquez is just, like I say, this fight could look like Duran Win versus Antonio Arroyo. It can also look a lot like Maki Pitolo versus Julian Marquez. And both of those, archetypes of fights are fights that Darren Win, that's his style. So I think Win's actually an interesting option here. This is a kind of a fascinating fight. I got the feeling that the Win Marquez fight is going to be that fight on Twitter where people are going to get into fights with each other about which one of these guys is going to have the best path to victory here.
Yeah, I can see it, and you can make a case for both sides easily. But yeah, my favorite spot is going to be that finish only for Marquez, though. But decision only for Duran Win makes a lot of sense as well. So yeah, should be another good fight here.
Yep, absolutely, man.
All right, let's keep on moving up the card. We have another great fight. Jake Matthews, Matthew Semmelsberger. We have Jake Matthews, 28 years old, 5'11" with a 73-inch reach. Semmelsberger, 30 years old, 6'1", with a 75-inch reach. Matthews, 2 years younger, and it's going to Semmelsberger with a 2-inch height advantage and reach advantage. Matthews is 4-1 in his last 5 fights, a decision win against Rostem Akman, a decision win against Emil Meek, a decision win against Diego Sanchez, a submission loss to Sean Brady, and then a knockout win against Andre Fiallo. Semmelsberger, 3-2 in his last 5 fights, a knockout win against Jason Witt, a decision loss to Chaos Williams, a knockout win against Martin Sano, a decision win against AJ Fletcher, and then a decision loss to Alex Morono. So yeah, Jake Matthews showed up after, I think it was a little bit of a layoff in that Fiallo fight, and then he shows up and just looks the best he's ever had. He showed a lot of power in that fight. He was hurting Fiallo really with anything that was landing, and then put him out in that second round. So yeah, Jake Matthews potentially leveled up, or was it, Fiallo having a bad night? I don't know, but he looked phenomenal in that Fiallo fight. And then Semmelsberger is a guy that I wasn't too high on coming into the UFC, but he's definitely proved me wrong. Lots of knockout wins, lots of power. I think this is a really good fight, Weezy, and a fight that's pretty well matched. I'm curious to your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. I mean, Semmelsberger's got a bit of a measurables advantage here, being 2 inches taller and having that 2-inch reach advantage. So he's going to be the bigger dude here. And he's a switch stance fighter while Matthews is orthodox. That's also an advantage for Semmelsberger here. Jake is 2 years younger, though, but both guys are right in their prime. The experience advantage, that's got to go to Jake Matthews. Is he's got 9 more fights, 100 more minutes in the pro cage, and 4.5 more years as a pro fighter. And he's got the UFC experience advantage with 10 more UFC fights and almost 120 more minutes in the UFC cage. Matthews got the better finish stats, but I think Semmelsberger's been a bit more durable. Matt's got the better finish rate as a pro, 70% to 67% for Matthews, but it's Jake who has the better UFC finish rate at 54% compared to 50% for Semmelsberger. And he's got KOs and subs, while Semmelsberger primarily relies on the knockout. Jake's been finished, though, in 4 of 5 UFC losses, 3 times by submission, once by KO. And Semmelsberger's never been finished at the UFC level. But in his two UFC losses, he's never been finished. But he got finished in both of his losses on the regional scene. The striking advantage goes to Matthews, as he's got the superior UFC striking metrics, and it's over a much bigger sample size, too, so we can lean on that. He's got the better significant strike differential at +1 to -0.18. He's got the better striking accuracy by about 2%. He's got the better striking defense by about 6%. And he's got the better significant strike attempt differential, as he throws about 1.24 more significant strikes than his opponents do, while Semmelsberger throws a little bit less. But Matt's got the better power numbers, 0.99 knockdowns per 15 minutes compared to 0.42 for Matthews. But it's going to be mostly a stand-up fight, in my opinion. And these guys are really well matched there. But it's good to keep in mind that Jake does have the better metrics over a larger sample size. I got to give Matthews the grappling advantage, too, as he's done more with the grappling in his UFC fights. He gets more takedowns per 15 minutes, 1.85 to 0.99 for Semmelsberger. More submission attempts per 15 minutes. He's got more control time, about 29% for Matthews, 17% for Semmelsberger. He's allowing less takedowns per 15 minutes at 0.5 to about 1 for Semmelsberger. And his takedown defense is just a shade better as well. But Jake outcontrols his opponents at almost a 2-to-1 ratio, but he hasn't seen as many takedown attempts per 15 as Semmelsberger has. It looks like these guys are well matched in the striking and the grappling. The advantage goes to Matthews when it comes to the strength of schedule, as Jake has fought, beaten, and lost to the better UFC competition. In particular, Jake's wins are more impressive than Semmelsberger's. So Matthews has several advantages on paper here. He's 2 years younger. He's got the overall and the UFC experience advantages. He's the slightly better and more diverse finisher at the UFC level. He has the superior UFC striking and grappling metrics, and he has the strength of schedule advantage, while Semmelsberger is 2 inches taller. He's got a 2-inch reach advantage. He's a switch stance fighter, and he's been more durable. And he has the better UFC power metrics, and he's never been dropped at the UFC level. But I think Jake gets the job done here by decision, but I think it's going to be a very close fight. Semmelsberger is a great athlete, and he's very explosive, and we've seen Jake Matthews get dropped before. We've seen him get knocked out before at the UFC level, and he's been finished in 4 of his 5 losses. But yeah, I think Matthews is a little more well-rounded. He's definitely a lot more experienced. He's definitely fought the better brand of competition. And when you look at those striking metrics over the much larger sample size, you don't really see Semmelsberger doing anything that much better than Jake to suggest that, a guy that got 4 takedowns in 6 fights is going to be the guy that got 22 takedowns in 16 fights for Matthews. So I think I like Matthews to win this one by decision.
Yep, I lean that way as well. And I kind of think it's going to be a close fight. So I don't know if I love the minus 235 here for Matthews, but yeah, he's minus 235, and then Semmelsberger is plus 200 there. So yeah, pretty chalky price on Matthews, probably because he looked like an absolute killer in his last fight.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a good that one's a banger, man. Matthews versus Matthew.
Yeah, should be a very, very fun fight. This card's filled with pretty good fights for the last card of the year, I will say.
Absolutely, dude.
All right, I got to watch what I say on this one. We got Cheyanne Vlismas going against Cory McKenna. We have Cheyanne Vlismas. She is 27 years old, 5'3" with a 63-inch reach. Cory McKenna, she is 23 years old, 5'3" with a 58-inch reach. Cory McKenna, she is 4 years younger, and Vlismas is going to have a 5-inch reach advantage. Cheyanne Vlismas, she is 4-1 in her last 5 fights. She made her debut, I believe, against Montserrat Ruiz, lost that fight by decision. She knocked out Gloria DePaula, and then she won it by decision against Mallory Martin. Cory McKenna, 4-1 in her last 5 fights, made her debut against, was it Kay Hansen, I think? Yeah, Kay Hansen, as she fought in the Contender Series against Demopoulos, won that fight by decision. She lost a decision to Elise Reed, and then she won by submission against Miranda Granger. Yeah, so obviously Cory McKenna is was that Reed fight? Was that this year or last year?
I think it was at the beginning of this year.
Was it? Yeah. That was
could have been at the end of last year, but yeah, I mean that one almost broke me.
Yeah, that one was almost had to hang it up after that one. We laid minus 200 on Cory McKenna, and the game plan was there, right? Like the skill set was there to win the fight, and she just decided to not go out there and wrestle. So after that, I feel like I can never trust her again. But she was able to bounce back against Granger. She looked really good in that fight. She went out there, she did wrestle, and look what happened. She looked good doing it. Cheyanne Vlismas, she's looked good as of late, but wins over DePaula, win over Mallory Martin doesn't really mean a ton to me. I think we have another close fight on our hands. Weezy, what do you feel about this one?
Yeah, this is a very interesting stylistic matchup, in my opinion. Vlismas definitely with a measurables advantage here. She's got 5 inches of reach on Cory, and she's a switch stance fighter to McKenna's orthodox. Cory's 4 years younger, though. It's even when it comes to the experience. The finish stats and durability, a little bit of an advantage for McKenna here, as she's got the better finish rate as a pro, 58% to 29% for Vlismas. And she's got 2 submissions and 2 knockouts, while Cheyanne has only finished fights via knockout. Vlismas has the better UFC finish rate, though, as she's finished 2 of her 3 UFC wins, while McKenna has finished 1 of 3 UFC wins. It's interesting that Vlismas finished 0 of 4 regional scene wins, but she's finished 2 of her 3 UFC wins. So as the competition gets tougher, Cheyanne's improving and starting to learn how to finish fights at this level. So that's going to be interesting. As she matures into her career, maybe Cheyanne's going to be more of a finisher. When it comes to the striking, the advantage goes to Vlismas, as Cheyanne's got the better significant strike differential, positive 2.9 to negative 0.06 for McKenna. Striking accuracy is about 9% better than McKenna. Knockdowns per 15, 0.33 for Cheyanne, 0 for Cory McKenna. And the striking defense, 63% for Vlismas, 47% for McKenna. Add to all that Cory's going to be at a 5-inch reach disadvantage here against the switch stance fighter in Vlismas. And it really looks as if Cory's going to have to get the fight to the ground in order to win minutes and moments here. The grappling advantage I'm going to give to McKenna, and she's got the way better UFC grappling metrics. She's 7 of 13 on her takedown attempts. That's almost 54%. She's averaging 2.03 takedowns per 15 minutes, 0.6 submission attempts per 15 minutes. She outcontrols her opponents 44% to about 12%. And she's showing 71% takedown defense. Vlismas has 73% takedown defense on 15 attempts against. And she's been outcontrolled 29% to 21%. in control time positions. However, she's been very efficient, as Cheyanne only has 3 takedown attempts, and she's faced 15 takedown attempts, but she's still winning 43% of the control time positions that her fights have been in. So this looks like it's going to be a tough row to hoe for McKenna, as she's undersized for the division here. The slight edge goes to McKenna in strength of schedule. It's very close, but overall strength of schedule and wins are just slightly better for McKenna. Cheyanne's got a 5-inch reach advantage. She's a switch stance fighter. She's got 25 more minutes in the pro cage, the better UFC finish rate, and she has the way better UFC striking metrics. Cory is 4 years younger. She has the better career finish rate and is more diverse as a finisher. And she has the grappling and the slight strength of schedule advantage. I think Cory absolutely has to get this fight to the ground and win minutes there. But Cheyanne has decent takedown defense and grappling efficiency. So, I mean, I feel like I'm going to see her getting her hand raised here, Cheyanne, because Cory's just too small for this division on the feet. She can't win striking exchanges. And even against Elise Reed just kind of kept getting back up when Cory took her down. But I think Cheyanne's going to have even more success on the feet against Cory McKenna than Elise Reed did. But, I mean, obviously Cheyanne's a much better grappler and a much better defensive grappler than Elise Reed was. But, yeah, McKenna is still young. She's only 23. And when she gets fights to the ground, that's where she does her best work. And she could absolutely do that here against Vlismas. It's just that, she has to, get that fight to the ground in order to look where she's priced right now. Because I think that Vlismas is going to be clearly winning the minutes on the feet. So, I mean, I've got to pick Cheyanne here. I mean, and plus, Cory, can you imagine if she just didn't wrestle here? Because it's not like you have to have a very long memory to know that she actually can have a grappling advantage and just choose not to use it. So, yeah, I feel like I have to go with Cheyanne here.
Yep, I'm picking her to win. I don't bet on fights like this anymore, and I've had a lot of success not doing that. So I won't be betting on this fight, but I will be picking Vlismas. She opened up as a dog, plus 125. She's currently minus 193. Cory McKenna opened up minus 145. She's currently plus 168. Laying minus 200 on Cheyanne Vlismas. What could go wrong?
Nope, I won't be doing that either. I mean, I'm probably staying away from this fight. But if Cheyanne gets up to like minus 300 or something, I might take a shot on Cory McKenna by decision to win minutes, on the ground and stuff. But I'd need a much bigger plus number than this.
Yeah, I would need it as well. But yeah, I won't be betting on this fight. Should be a fun one to watch. I'm looking forward to watching both these fighters. I like both of them. All right. Next we have a friend of the MMA engine, Cody Brundage, stepping in on short notice against Michał Oleksiejczuk. Brundage, 28 years old, 6 foot, 72-inch reach. Oleksiejczuk, 27 years old, 6 foot with a 74-inch reach. Oleksiejczuk 1 year younger, and he's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage. Brundage 3-2 in his last 5 fights. He made his debut against Nick Maximov on short notice, lost that fight by decision, and then he submitted Dolce Longyambola, and then he knocked out Tresean Gore. Michał Oleksiejczuk 3-2 in his last 5 fights, a submission loss to Jimmy Crute, a decision win against Modestas Bukauskas, a knockout win against Shamil Gamzatov, a decision loss to Dustin Jacoby, and then a knockout win against Sam Alvey. Yeah, shout out to Brundage for stepping in here on short notice against Oleksiejczuk, who he's very, very good. Oleksiejczuk's been making a ton of improvements. He's looked like an absolute killer as of late. It looks like a pretty tough matchup for Brundage to come in here on short notice for, but Weezy, curious to your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, so measurables advantage goes to Oleksiejczuk. He's 1 year younger. He's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage here, and he's the southpaw in this southpaw versus orthodox fighter matchup. Michał now down at his proper weight class because he was fighting up at 205 and was, clearly it was going to be easy for this dude to make 185, and now this is his second fight at 185. So it's going to be interesting to see, how Michał looks at the new weight class and whether this is really the right place for him to be, that he could take advantage of that speed, that volume that he likes to throw on the feet. He's also got the experience advantage here, as he's got 13 more professional fights. He's got 75 more minutes in the pro cage and over 5 more years as a pro fighter. He also has the UFC experience advantage, as he's got 5 more fights and 40 more minutes in the UFC cage in comparison to Brundage. The finish stats and durability advantage goes to Cody. He's got the better finish rate as a pro, 88% for Cody, 77% for Michał. And at the UFC level, 100% finish rate for Cody Brundage, 80% finish rate for Michał Oleksiejczuk. So Cody gets knockouts and submissions, while Michał is dependent entirely on the knockout. But Cody's been finished in 1 of 2 losses by knockout, while Michał has been finished in 2 of 3 UFC losses by submission and in 4 of 5 pro losses. So it definitely appears that Cody's got the durability advantage here as well. Striking, that's Oleksiejczuk. He's got some really nice UFC striking metrics. He's got the better significant strike differential at 0.76 to Cody's is actually 0. The knockdowns for 15 minutes, 1.64 for Oleksiejczuk, 0.6 for Cody Brundage. And the striking defense is about 12% better than Cody's. Also, Michał has an unusual cadence when he strikes, and he's very good with pressure. He works the body, and his power is underrated. But Cody showed that he has power on the feet in the Gore fight. He trains with Dustin Jacoby. Dustin Jacoby's already beaten Michał Oleksiejczuk. So Cody will most likely have a really good game plan in this fight in order to find ways to win minutes against this guy, because he trains with the guy who's already knows what it's like to be in the cage with Oleksiejczuk. As much as Cody is improving in the striking, I think he'd be smart, though, to get this fight to the ground. I'm giving Oleksiejczuk the striking advantage here. But in the grappling, I'm going to give it to Brundage. I mean, Cody's the more active wrestler, as he's averaging 1.81 takedowns per 15 minutes, 1.2 submission attempts per 15 minutes, and he's getting 23.76% control time, while Michał only gets 6.33%. Excuse me. Over 69% of Cody's fights have taken place in control time positions, while for Michał, it's less than 18%. So it's safe to say that Cody is much more comfortable grappling and wrestling, while Michał is much more comfortable standing. In Michał's 3 UFC losses, he's given up 10 takedowns on 14 attempts, and he's been controlled for 27% of the cage time in his losses. Michał has lost every single UFC fight where he's yielded a takedown, and he's 5-0-1 in the fights where he hasn't allowed a takedown. So that's about as simple as a stat as you can get. When you have that striker versus grappler matchup, it's very clear to see that most of Oleksiejczuk's fights have been just at striking defense, at striking distance, right? And he's very comfortable there. And he would be comfortable here in this matchup. But when this guy gets taken down at any time, he's lost that fight at the UFC level. And Cody's a wrestler. Plus 230 right now, and we know that this dude can wrestle at this level. We know that he's got legit ability to take people down, to take people's backs, and to get control time. So the strength of schedule, that goes to Oleksiejczuk, as he's fought, beaten, and lost to the UFC competition with the better win-loss records and the more experienced fighters. So Cody has the finish stats, the durability, the grappling advantages here, while Michał has the measurables. He's got the pro and the UFC experience. He's got the striking and the strength of schedule advantages here. Cody has a path to victory, though. Michał has not looked good on the ground at the UFC level, and Cody has what it takes to get the fight there and make Michał grapple. I don't think he wins this fight, all the time, but the Brundage money line at plus 230 is telling you he's only got to win it about 3 out of 10 times for you to break even. And when you see that fat path and you say to yourself every single time that this guy Oleksiejczuk has been taken down in a UFC fight that he's lost it, and then you see a guy like Brundage who basically gets a takedown in every single fight that he's in, I'm liking that plus 230 money line on Cody, and Cody's got power too.
Yeah, what I'm liking is I like violence a lot. This is probably one of the biggest violence spots that stuck out, just because both guys are really good finishers. Brundage 88% finish rate, Oleksiejczuk 77, and then Oleksiejczuk been finished 4 times, 3 coming by submission, and then Brundage has been finished on 1 of 2 losses as well. So I like violence. That's kind of how I'll be attacking it. Will not be laying the -270 on Oleksiejczuk, but I do think he wins this fight. I do think he wins it by knockout. But violence, first and foremost for me. We got a striker versus grappler matchup. Both guys can finish, and both guys can be finished. I'm curious to see where they set this over-under at.
Yeah, let me look at the stats here, because Brundage and Oleksiejczuk at the UFC level, their fights have finished inside the distance just under 70% of the time. So, if you're getting a line at like better than -200, there's a little bit of an edge there, and who knows where it's going to open, so maybe we'll be able to find a decent violent spot there if these guys get a little lazy and open it at just a little bit of a juice number.
Yeah, I'll be looking for it. And by the way, we do have a Brian Battle Fakhretdinov line open up.
Oh, what's the line at?
So Fakhretdinov opened up -150. He is currently -175.
Really? Money coming in on Rinat, huh?
Yep, Battle is currently +150.
See, people don't know that Michał Levy's actually gassed on his way to the cage, Brady.
Yes.
That very rarely happens in the UFC level, where you see somebody really struggle with the 3 steps that you have to climb in order to get into the cage. Andreas had just finished smoking his last Marlboro Red before he made that walk. He was exhausted, man. So, Rinat was able to take down Andreas. Is he going to be able to take down and keep down Brian Battle? I think I like the plus money on Battle there.
Yeah, man, we'll have to see where that money line goes on Battle. So, yeah, I would not mind backing Battle. I backed him a couple times thus far in the UFC, and it's been working out. I like the guy quite a bit.
Yeah, he's a good fighter, and that submission game of his is very underrated.
Absolutely. Submitting Andre Petroski is not an easy thing to do.
Hell yeah, and look at the run Petroski's been on, man. I think that's one unit that I'm doing right now. I've taped that fight. I'm ready to go. 1 unit on Brian Battle. Let's go. +150.
All right, there we go. I like it. All right, next fight on the card. A very good fight here. We got Drew Dober going against Bobby Green. We have Drew Dober, 34 years old, 5'8" with a 70-inch reach. Bobby Green, 36 years old, 5'10" with a 71-inch reach. We got Dober 2 years younger. We have Bobby Green with a 2-inch height advantage and a 1-inch reach advantage. So Drew Dober is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. He had a knockout win against Alexander Hernandez, a submission loss to Islam Makhachev, a decision loss to Brad Riddell, a knockout win against Terrence McKinney, and then a knockout win against Rafael Alves. As far as Bobby Green, he is 2-3 in his last 5 fights, a decision loss to Thiago Moises, a decision loss to Rafael Fiziev, a knockout win against Al Iaquinta, a decision win against Nazareth Haqparast, and then a knockout loss to Islam Makhachev here. So, yeah, this is a very good fight here, Weezy. I think this is a fight that is primarily going to play out on the feet. Should be a good one. We have Drew Dober, who's going to be a really good striker in his own right. He's going to throw a ton of power. I think he's definitely the harder hitter in this matchup. And then we have Bobby Green, who's going to be the volume guy. The guy's landing, I think, like almost 6 significant strikes per minute. Should be another competitive fight here. Weezy, I'm curious to hear which way you're leaning on this one.
Yeah, it's a great one, man. I mean, Green's a little bit older here, but he's 2 inches taller. He's got a 1-inch reach advantage. But, Dober 2 years younger in the southpaw. So, there's tail of the tape advantages for both guys. Green, 6 more fights, about 100 more minutes in the pro cage over his career, and a little bit longer as a pro, about 1.5 years more. But, when it comes to the UFC level, Green more minutes, but Dober 1 more fight. Both of these guys are good finishers. 62% finish rate for Green, 66 or 68% finish rate for Dober. But at the UFC level, Green finishing 33% of the time, Dober finishing 73% of the time. Bobby Green has been finished in 2 of 8 UFC losses, and for Drew Dober, it's been 4 of 7 UFC losses. Drew Dober's been submitted 4 times at the UFC level. So when it comes to the striking, Bobby Green's got fantastic metrics over a huge sample size. So I really like the ability for Bobby Green to win minutes in the stand-up here. But Drew Dober's a power guy. This is a guy who's landed 7 knockdowns in 19 UFC fights, while for Bobby Green, it's about 3 knockdowns in 18 UFC fights. So Green, the volume guy, the moment winner, but Drew Dober most likely the volume guy, the minute winner, while Dober's going to be the moment winner here and the guy who's trying to take your head off with 1 shot. In terms of defense, Green is very difficult to find. A 62% striking defense, and this guy spends over almost 75% of that cage time, which is over 230 minutes at striking range. So to have that kind of a striking defense is a big feather in his cap here. Bobby's also going to be the more likely guy to wrestle here, as he's averaging 1.27 takedowns per 15 minutes, while Dober averages 0.73. Both of these guys right around 15 to 16% control time for, but it's Dober who's been controlled 23% of the time, while Green's only been controlled 10% of the time. Keep in mind that both guys have seen more takedown attempts from their opponents than they have attempted themselves. So the fact that Bobby Green outcontrols his opponents at about a 1.5 to 1 ratio, and Dober gets outcontrolled at about a 1.5 to 1 ratio, that the grappling efficiency leans in favor of Green here. So I can see Green winning minutes on the feet. I could see Green winning minutes in the grappling exchanges here. And I look for Drew Dober to kind of be that moment winner, that power guy that can change the trajectory of the fight by landing one big shot. But man, Bobby Green's really durable too. So when it comes to the strength of schedule, that's Bobby Green, you guys. He's got a much better ratio overall. He's fought the more experienced competition overall, and those wins are better for Bobby Green as well. So, yeah, dude. I mean, like when I look at the stats here before breaking down tape, I'm really high on what I see from Bobby Green, and I think that he probably gets the job done here.
Sorry, I was muted. I think he has more ways to win. Like you said, I think he has the takedown route, right? Like that's something Drew Dober has struggled with a lot throughout his career, getting taken down 23 times. So I think he can mix in those takedowns. And on the feet, yeah, Dober is the harder hitter, but you mentioned it. Bobby Green, he's very, very tough, very durable. How many times have you been knocked down? Like maybe once or twice?
Yeah, I mean, it's I think it's been actually 3 times. 3 times though, but in 18 fights and 888 significant strikes absorbed, and Drew Dober's stupid durable, so it's not like Bobby Green's getting, Dober out of there either.
Yeah.
I think this fight probably goes to decision. It'll probably be juiced up to go to decision, but yeah, man, I mean, that Bobby Green by decision line is going to be very interesting to me. I don't even know where the line is on this one. This is one of the ones I haven't written up yet.
Yeah, Dober opened up a -110 pick'em, currently -150, and Bobby Green opened up -110 pick'em, currently +130. I actually agree with that opener a lot more, that -110 opener. I think it's going to be a very, very close fight that can really go either way here, and it's going to go to decision like you mentioned, and the judges are probably going to fuck it up either way.
Yeah, that's the problem, So maybe bet the over 2.5 because the judges can't take that away from you. Only the ref can.
Yes, yes, for sure. So, yeah, I think overs are decent. We'll see what the lines are on that for tomorrow on probability. But yeah, Bobby Green at plus money, I don't think is the worst look in the world. Plus 130. I'll have to see where the line goes throughout the week. But yeah, Bobby Green as a dog is very intriguing.
Agreed.
All right, we still have a couple more fights. It's a long card to end the year. We have Alex Caceres going against Julian Erosa. We got Caceres, 34 years old, 5'10" with a 73-inch reach. Erosa, 33 years old, 6'1" with a 74-inch reach. Erosa 1 year younger. Erosa 3-inch height advantage and a 1-inch reach advantage. Caceres is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He had a decision win against Chase Hooper, a submission win against Austin Springer, a decision win against Kevin Kroom, a submission win against Sungwoo Choi, and the decision loss to Sadiq Yusuf. As far as Julian Erosa, he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. A knockout win against Nate Landwehr, a decision loss to Sungwoo Choi, a submission win against Charles Jourdain, a decision win against Steven Peterson, and then a decision win against Hakeem Dawodu his last time out. And yeah, Erosa pulled off a very nice upset against Dawodu his last time out. Showed really good wrestling, really good control in that fight, good striking as well. He hurt Dawodu multiple times in that fight. I like Erosa quite a bit. The guy's a dog, and the only knock I have and ever have had on Julian Erosa has been the chin. I mean, the guy gets knocked out and knocked down a ton, but luckily he's fighting Alex Caceres, who is not really a knockout threat. So it should be a pretty good matchup here for Julian Erosa. I think it's the one that I like him to win, and I like the fact that he's not going against somebody that could potentially put his lights out on Alex Caceres. So Weezy, how do you feel about this fight here?
Yeah, it's wow. This is going to be a fun fight, man. I mean, you look at a 34-year-old going up against a 33-year-old. Erosa a couple inches taller, 1 inch reach advantage. Southpaw versus southpaw matchup. Erosa 4 more pro fights, a couple more minutes in the pro cage, but it's Caceres who has 26 of his 33 pro fights at the UFC level, and he's got 200 more minutes in the UFC cage in comparison to Erosa. Both of these guys pretty good finishers, but it's Erosa who's been the better finisher at the UFC level with a 58% finish rate, while it's 36% for Caceres. And Erosa just as dangerous by submission as he is by knockout, while Caceres definitely depends a lot more on the submission here. We've seen Caceres finished in 6 of 11 UFC losses, and we've seen Erosa finish in 4 of 5 UFC losses. So I think that this could be a pretty decent violence spot, as these guys are in all-action fights and they tend to throw down. When it comes to the significant strike differential, much better for Caceres. He throws the same amount of volume, but 64% striking defense for Caceres, only 48% striking defense for Erosa. Both of these guys getting knocked down a decent amount, but definitely Erosa's 7 knockdowns absorbed in 12 fights. So, I mean, maybe Caceres will be the better moment winner here, but Erosa is definitely very aggressive, and I think that that's just part of it. The guy is in all action fights, and as a result of that style, he either breaks his opponent or he gets broken himself because he's not as concerned with defense as some other less aggressive fighters might be. When it comes to the grappling here, I mean, Alex Caceres never attempts to grapple. I mean, if there's one guy that's probably more likely to attempt takedowns here, it's Erosa. But I've got a feeling that this is going to be entirely taking place on the feet here. And in that type of a matchup, I'm going to probably favor that pressure that Erosa brings, because Caceres is a guy who kind of has that traditional martial arts background. He's that Bruce Lee fan, a lot of spinning kicks, a lot of kicks from distance. Well, I could see Erosa just walking forward like a zombie, crowding Caceres, getting him to move backwards and to just stay in his face with that volume, pace, and pressure that he's been throwing. And I mean, look at the difference, right? You see, Caceres has been in control time positions about 36% of the time. Erosa, a little bit less than that, about 29% of the time, right? But look at the difference in volume, Brady. Caceres throwing 8 significant strikes attempts per minute, while it's for Erosa, it's almost 13. So I think that the type of fight that Erosa is going to bring makes him more likely to win minutes and pace and pressure and volume on his opponent than I think Caceres will. And Caceres is more of a reactive grappler. He's attempted 17 takedowns, but his opponents have attempted 120. So it's clear that Alex is just kind of comfortable being on the feet. So I think that that's where this fight will take place. Erosa's 48% on his takedowns, Caceres 70% on his takedowns. And it's probably because these guys don't wrestle enough that when they do decide to mix it in, their opponents probably aren't expecting it. But Caceres a lot more efficient. Let's just put it that way. Erosa right in the meaty part of the curve when it comes to efficiency, but Caceres' opponents are attempting like 7 takedowns for every one that he attempts, but they're barely out-controlling him, not even 1.5 to 1. So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely I like what Erosa brings in the stand-up here. And as far as the strength of schedule goes, better overall for Erosa, and the wins are better for Erosa. So Erosa's a little bit younger. He's taller. He's got the reach advantage. He's got the volume advantage. He pressures more. He's not really at much of an experience deficit here. And I think he's a little bit more reliant on the power than Caceres. So I think I like Julian Erosa to win this fight and probably get some kind of a finish late in the fight. Even though Caceres is very durable. Maybe you know what? I think I'm going to say Erosa by decision.
All right. Yeah, I like Erosa as well. Opened up minus 150, currently minus 172. Caceres opened up plus 130, currently plus 147. Yeah, nothing I'm running to the window for, but I do like Erosa to win this fight.
Yeah, I didn't know where that line was. I'm not running to the window for Erosa at minus 170. No chance.
No chance indeed. He's one of those guys where you like to back as a dog because he will always fight for your money as a dog.
Couldn't agree more, man, because he's got a lot of defensive inefficiencies. You don't want to be laying juice, but that kind of a fighter as an underdog is the kind of underdog you want to back because they're going to bring that fight to their opponent, not let them get comfortable.
Yep, absolutely. But he's a fun guy to watch. I think it's going to be another great fight on the card.
Absolutely.
All right, next we have Amir Albazi going against Alessandro Costa. We got Albazi, 29 years old, 5'5" with a 68-inch reach. Costa, 26 years old, 5'4" with a 67-inch reach. We have Costa 3 years younger. Albazi with a 1-inch height advantage and a 1-inch reach advantage. Albazi 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He made his debut against Malcolm Gordon and won that fight by submission. He beat Ismagulov by decision, and then he beat Francisco Figueiredo his last time out by submission. Costa will be making his debut here on short notice. Yeah, we were talking about it before the show. Albazi was actually supposed to have 2 opponents, right? Like, do you remember the 2 guys he was supposed to face?
Yeah, he was supposed to face Brandon Royval. Then Royval broke his wrist. Then he was given Alex Perez, and then Perez withdrew. So now the third option is Alessandro Costa.
Yep, Costa, only 26 years old, very young guy making his debut here. We see that Albazi is the biggest favorite on the card here by a mile. So, yeah, I don't know much about this Costa guy. I still got to go and watch a little bit of him. I tried to look at some things, but thought maybe this was a Contender Series guy. That wasn't the case. So, yeah, I just don't know a ton about the guy. But what I do know about Albazi is the guy's an absolute beast, and this is going to probably be a matchup where he does win. And I would have liked to see him face like a Royval or like a Perez and get that nice big step up of competition, but it's going to have to wait. I'm assuming he goes out here and finishes this guy, but to be honest, I don't know a ton about Costa. You know anything at all about this Costa guy?
No, man. I mean, I think it was the Carlos Gomez fight that was the UFC Contender Series fight, but he has some UFC stats.
Oh, has he been on the Contender Series?
Yeah, he has. According to my stats, he has. So let's just take a quick look here. Alessandro Costa was on the Contender Series against Juan Andres Luna, July 26th, 2022. And that was 2 fights ago. So Andres Luna, so then he beat Carlos Gomez after that. So he beat him by split decision and was not offered the contract. Then he went on the regional scene, got another win, and now here he is fighting Amir Albazi on short notice. I mean, what a tough road to hoe this is going to be. This dude Albazi is the real deal. Still only 29 years old. He's going to be bigger. He's got a 1-inch reach advantage. He's got a couple more pro fights, more UFC level experience. He's the better finish rate guy overall. He's never been finished. Yeah, I have to go watch this guy Costa because I don't remember this fight against Andres Luna.
Same.
So I'm just gonna have to go back and watch it because there's no reason for me to think that this line is off. I mean, this guy Albazi's the real deal, and he's fighting a guy who didn't even get offered a contract on the Contender Series, who barely won that fight by split decision. So. Yeah, I mean, you got to believe that this is going to be Albazi's fight, but I'm not going to talk out of school having not seen the film on Costa yet.
Yeah, same. Yeah, I did Contender Series content. I do not remember this guy at all, like at all. So gonna go back and rewatch some of his fights probably tonight or tomorrow. But yeah, it's Albazi's a big favorite. Not much you can do with the fight anyway. We have Albazi opening up as a minus 300 favorite, currently minus 426, and then Costa opening up a plus 250 dog, currently plus 326. I see him, Albazi now minus 480 on FanDuel Sportsbooks. It looks like people are putting Albazi in their parlays. And yeah, I think he probably should go out there and win. He's a great fighter, but yeah, don't know much about this Costa guy. We'll also have to see how he looks on tape. But yeah, Albazi's a phenomenal fighter, though. That is something I know for sure.
Yeah, absolutely he is. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to this one just because I want to see Amir Albazi again. This guy is definitely talented, and he looks like he's, a top 10 flyweight in the making here. So, yeah, I want to see what he does here. But, man, this next fight, Ismagulov versus Tsarukyan, this is much better. Yeah, and I mean, why the hell would Amir Albazi versus, a DWCS washout be on the main card instead of Said Nurmagomedov versus Said Yakub Kakramatov? I have no idea.
Doesn't make much sense. It just doesn't make much sense. But
But
yeah,
then
two
again,
fights.
neither did the Patty Pimblett decision. So, this is the world we're living in, Brady.
This is indeed the world we're living in. It's the game we play. It is.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, like you said, phenomenal fight. Arman Tsarukyan, Damir Ismagulov, two very high level guys. And you could argue like this could potentially be the main event for this card. I mean, these are two guys that, top notch guys. Tsarukyan only 26 years old. He's 5'7" with a 72-inch reach. Ismagulov 31 years old, 5'9" with a 70-inch reach. We have Tsarukyan 5 years younger. Ismagulov with a 1-inch height or 2-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach disadvantage. Tsarukyan is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Decision win against Davi Hamosh, a decision win against Matt Favola, knockout win against Christos Giagos, a knockout win against Joel Alvarez, and then a decision loss, pretty close decision loss to Mateus Gamrot. No shame in that. Damir Ismagulov, he is 5-0 in his last 5 fights. He had a decision win against Guram Kudataladze his last time out. Pretty close fight there. Prior to that, decision wins over Alves, Moises, Alvarez, George's, guys like that. Another really good fighter. Damir Ismagulov, 21-1. This is such a high-level fight here, Weezy. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, it's incredibly high level. I mean, I like that Tsarukyan's younger and he's got that 2-inch reach advantage here. Ismagulov, one more professional fight, but, over 100 more minutes in the pro cage. But, the level of UFC experience is actually a little bit of an edge for Tsarukyan with 2 more fights and about 20 more minutes in the UFC cage. Tsarukyan, the much better finisher without question, but it's Damir who's been a little more durable, having never been finished in his career. Tsarukyan having the better UFC striking metrics with almost a 2 significant strike differential, while it's about 1.5 for Damir. Both these guys are accurate. Both of these guys are showing a little bit of power. Damir's been knocked down once, while Tsarukyan has never been knocked down. And when it gets to the grappling here, we've seen Damir mix it in, but I think that Damir is going to want to keep this fight standing. And I think that Tsarukyan is going to have a really good chance to win minutes on the ground here. He's out-controlling his opponents at better than a 2-to-1 ratio. And keep in mind that he's doing that after fighting guys like Gamrot, Alvarez, Giagos, Frivola, Davy Hamos, Islam Makhachev. I mean, he's fought some really good grapplers, and he's out-controlling them 2-to-1. Damir has got 90% takedown defense, though, so he's going to be difficult to take down. He's been controlled for less than 3% of his UFC career. But when you look at the names, Alex Gorgees, Joel Alvarez never attempts takedowns. Thiago Moises, has been striking a lot lately. Rafael Alves, definitely more of a striker. Guram Kutataladze is a pure kickboxer. So this is going to be the most grappling-heavy game plan that he's ever had to see, and it's entirely possible that Damir's wrestling is not even going to be close to Arman Tsarukyan's level here. But we're going to have to wait and see because we just don't have a lot of information. Ismagulov's faced 11 takedowns. He's stopped 10 of them. But the numbers, that he's shown thus far against not even close to as good a wrestlers as Tsarukyan are very, very good. When it comes to the strength of schedule, that's Arman Tsarukyan all day. He's fought the much more experienced competition, and both these guys are fighting guys with good win-loss ratios for sure. But, yeah, I mean, I like Tsarukyan here because I think that while Ismagulov is very difficult to win minutes off of in the striking exchanges, that we're going to see a guy in Tsarukyan who is good at striking range just bring a lot more to the grappling side of things than Ismagulov has seen at this level thus far. And I think that we have to assume that, if Arman has success with that grappling, with that wrestling, that he should have more ways to win this fight than Damir, because Damir's not knocking anybody out, and he's probably not knocking out Tsarukyan. He's a good minute winner on the feet, but this guy's not blowing the doors off of people. He's just a guy who makes very few mistakes, very defensively sound, and, he's a good minute winner. But I think Tsarukyan's a little more explosive, and he's definitely a lot more well-rounded. So I think it's a great fight. I'm leaning Tsarukyan here. And also, we got to keep our eye on Damir Ismagulov on the scale. Don't forget, a couple fights ago, completely botched weight cut where he came in, 9 pounds heavy? So I know Damir, at 5'9" is a big lightweight. So we gotta keep an eye out for what Damir looks like on the scales. And I think Tsarukyan's had some trouble before, hasn't he? Or am I imagining that?
I don't know. I'll have to go back
because he fought Joel Alvarez, who's had trouble on the scales.
That could be it.
Okay. Yeah, I think maybe that was what it was. But yeah, okay. So we got to keep our eye on Damir, though. It looks like it's getting harder and harder for Damir to make 155. And if it's a bad weight cut for him, and he looks like shit on the scales, that might be the time to really smash the Arman money line, because he could push that grappling heavy game plan and potentially break Damir late.
Yeah, absolutely. I think both guys are phenomenal fighters. It's just Ismagulov is a guy that, like you mentioned, his takedown defense does look good, but really against who? I mean, it's going to be tested here against one of the best wrestlers in the division in Tsarukyan. And he's a guy that can push a pace. He can wrestle for 15 minutes, no problem, without getting tired. So yeah, you got to favor Ismagulov in the striking, but I just have a feeling Tsarukyan's going to kind of stick to him like glue in this matchup. So I'm with you. I lean Tsarukyan. But I don't want to completely count out Ismagulov. He's so good. His takedown defense has looked good, and the striking is incredible. So I don't know if I'll be betting this fight, but I will for sure be enjoying this fight because it's one of the best fights, if not the best fight on the card. Tsarukyan opened up a -225 favorite, currently -182. Ismagulov opened up +190, currently +157. Any thoughts on that line at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's right about where it should be. I think Arman's got more ways to win. I think Damir could potentially win a decision here. But yeah, I mean, I think Tsarukyan at -170 sounds fair to me.
Sounds good right there with you. All right, main event time. We have Jared Cannonier going against Sean Strickland. We got Jared Cannonier, 38 years old, 5'11" with a 77-inch reach. Sean Strickland, 31 years old, 6'1" with a 76-inch reach. We got Strickland 7 years younger. Strickland with a 2-inch height advantage and a 1-inch reach disadvantage. Jared Cannonier is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Knockout win against Jack Hermanson. Decision loss against Robert Whittaker. Decision win against Kelvin Gastelum. Knockout win against Derek Brunson. And then a decision loss to Israel Adesanya. As far as Sean Strickland, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Knockout win against Brendan Allen. Decision win against Christoph Jocko. Decision win against Uriah Hall. Decision win against Jack Hermanson. And then a knockout loss to Alex Pereira here. Yeah, Jared Cannonier, 38 years old. So he's definitely getting up there. But the guy has a ton of power. Sean Strickland just got knocked out in his last fight. Yeah, Sean Strickland's a very, very good striker. I'm just not sure what was up with Sean Strickland's last fight. He kind of came out there with that awkward style of his hands completely down, and he was walking forward towards Alex Pereira. Like, I don't know what was going on in that fight, but he got caught by Alex Pereira. No shame in that, I suppose. Alex Pereira does hit like an absolute truck, and so does Cannonier, so that concerns me a little bit, but I think I like Sean Strickland here. I like the volume of Sean Strickland. The guy's hands are very good, and I think Jared Cannonier is probably knockout or bust in this matchup. Sean Strickland, typically a very durable guy. I think, was that Pereira fight the first time he's ever been knocked out?
He's been knocked out twice. I think Elizu Zaleski dos Santos got him with some crazy capoeira shit, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that is right. So he's been knocked out twice. But yeah, typically a very durable guy. But yeah, I like Sean Strickland to be the minute winner here and probably just pick apart Cannonier across 5 rounds. But Cannonier's dangerous. He hits like a truck. But I do lean the Strickland side. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this main event here?
Yeah, so, I mean, let's not forget that Sean's 7 years younger here. That's definitely significant. He's taller. He's only at a 1-inch reach disadvantage here. But, Cannonier switches stances. So it'll be interesting to see how Sean deals with that. When it comes to experience, Sean's more experienced. About 90 more minutes in the cage as a pro, 8 more pro fights, over 3 more years as a pro fighter. And in addition to that, he's got 2 more fights at the UFC level, over 50 more minutes in the UFC cage. Cannonier, the better finisher at the UFC level. He's finished 6 of his 8 wins, while Strickland is 33%, so 4 of his 12 wins. So Cannonier, the much better finisher at the UFC level. Strickland's been finished at a 50% rate at the UFC. Cannonier, 33% rate. Jared, good significant strike differential. It's positive 0.23, but it's positive 1.53 for Sean Strickland. And Strickland throws a lot more volume. You look at Cannonier, who's spending about 75% of his UFC cage time at striking range. And for Strickland, it's about 81%. So a little bit higher for Strickland. But Strickland's thrown 13.52 significant strike attempts per minute, while Cannonier throws 7.26. But, it's just it's important to note that while this is going to be a striking match, that Cannonier was a heavyweight, then a light heavyweight, and is now a middleweight, while Strickland was a welterweight for most of his career and could probably still make welterweight, but he chooses to fight up at 185. So, but this, the grappling numbers I'm not even going to talk about because it's pointless to talk about that. Strickland's going to stand in front of this dude and box him. But for me, it's the volume, the pressure, the jab of Sean Strickland up against those kicks of Jared Cannonier. And Sean's going to have to be very careful while he pressures not to be too heavy on that lead leg, because Jared could absolutely bust up that low lead leg of Sean's with those low leg kicks. And especially because he's a switch stance fighter, he can go inside and outside. And if he damages that lead leg of Strickland, it's going to be tough for Strickland to land that jab, to walk forward, to pressure. But the more Strickland throws that jab, the more he pressures, the more he walks forward. It's going to be harder for Cannonier to land those low leg kicks. It's hard to kick, going backwards and be successful with it. So when you look at the strength of schedule here, it's very much similar. Little bit of an edge for Jared Cannonier, I'd say, overall. But this is a great fight, man. This is a great main event. I like Strickland's youth. I like the minute winning for Strickland here. And because Cannonier is so tough, I think that the way I would play Strickland is either decision only or just Sean Strickland by decision. I think that'd probably be the best way to go here. And I think Cannonier can win this fight on damage by decision as well. And he could potentially get a knockout. We've seen Strickland knocked out, and it wasn't that long ago. And it's not like Strickland's going to start panic wrestling at any point, even if he is in trouble on the feet. So I think Cannonier is actually live to get a finish here. I mean, who am I picking, though? I don't even know who I'm picking, dude. Who are you picking?
I'm going to go with Sean Strickland here. It's hard to trust the guy after the stunt he pulled in his last fight, but I like his striking a lot. I think he kind of picks his way apart to a decision there. Did not take a look at the line until now. It looks like Sean Strickland opened up as a dog. Plus 130 is now minus 129. Cannonier opened up minus 150 currently, plus 109. Like I said, maybe the decision only for Strickland and maybe the finish only for Jared Cannonier. I just really struggle to see Cannonier winning minutes and winning a decision, but Cannonier absolutely has the power to put anybody out, including Sean Strickland.
Absolutely. I mean, and those low leg kicks can absolutely change a fight early in a fight when you land them. So, we'll see how this one goes. But I think I'm leaning Strickland here, but I definitely got to look a lot more into it.
Yeah, I feel it. But yeah, we did it, Weezy. We went through all 14 fights there. A couple spots sticking out. Curious to see where some of these lines go. Curious to see where these props drop. Curious to talk about these props on Probability tomorrow. But yeah, Weezy, let the people know where they can find you, what you have going on throughout the week this week for some content.
Yeah, you can find me on the MMA Engine YouTube channel tomorrow for Probability. You can find me on my YouTube channel Tuesday and Wednesday night for Ask Weezy and for Just a Tip with Uncle Weezy. We'll break down all those fights from a statistical and tape study perspective. Finish with Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week, and I'll give you another greasy four-legger, which we cashed again last week at almost plus 1,000 odds. So, yeah, I mean, I'm on a good winning streak here, but I've had like 6 units stolen from me 2 weeks ago. I had 6 units stolen from me this week. I'm hoping to finish out the year 2022 with one more flapjack to put on this winning streak. And I hope that we beat these bookies with a bag of oranges and make them cry this week, Brady, and finish off this year strong.
That is the goal. Yeah, the bookies were certainly crying last night. That is for sure.
Yeah.
All right. You can follow me on Twitter, DFS_numbers, Instagram, DFS by the numbers, YouTube, DFS by the numbers, MMA Engine tomorrow with Weezy for some probability. Should be going around 5:30 Eastern time. Weezy, any word on a potential Cody Brundage interview this week?
Yes, I believe that we will be going live. I think maybe Wednesday night. Lou said that Cody's going to make some time for us. So, we're going to get to talk to him about this fascinating matchup with Oleksiejczuk. The insight that he's going to get from his teammate Dustin Jacoby, who's already fought him, plus 230 number on Cody. I think I might have to take a shot on that big plus money number because he's definitely got a path in this fight.
Let's go. I cannot wait to hear what he has to say Wednesday. Always love hearing those interviews. One more thing before we head out here. Shout out to Take No Prisoners 9.99 saying thanks, guys. Thank you, Take No Prisoners, for hanging out. Thank you for the donut. It does go a long way here at Pub Sports Radio. But yeah, guys, going to head out. Best of luck for UFC Vegas 66. We will talk to you guys very soon and see you later.